And it can be quite easy to look at people on social media and think, gosh, they've got perfect skin.
Yeah.
Or they've got that glass skin that I want. I'm definitely seeing the effects of that in my clinic because I'm seeing patients who are younger and younger who are significantly impacted by what they're seeing on social media. There's a lot of misinformation about sunscreen. The bottom line is the biggest cause of skin cancer is the sun. There may be a red bump, there may be a red patch, there may be a scaly patch, it may look like a patch of eczema that's just not going away. It may be a little ulcer, which is just not healing up. They can be itchy, they can bleed. If something's appeared and it's just standing out to you, it's not looking right, just go see a dermatologist. It is coming from a dermatologist. It's really important to recognize that hardly anyone has perfect skin. Everyone's got their own kind of personal struggles that they're going through.
Our skin tells the story of our lives, from childhood scrapes to teenage breakouts, sun-soaked holidays, pregnancy, stress, aging, and everything in between. It's the first thing people see, but often the last thing we fully understand. What's the best skincare routine for your skin type? How do you protect your skin in extreme climates like the UAE? Why do men and women experience different skin issues? And what changes when we go through major hormonal shifts like postpartum or menopause? And how do we support children with common skin concerns like eczema? To help us unpack all of this, I'm joined by the wonderful Dr. Amna Shah, a highly respected dermatologist with years of experience treating a wide range of skin conditions across all ages and stages. She brings a wealth of knowledge and plenty of practical tips to help you better understand and care for your skin, no matter of your background or lifestyle. Hello, Dr. Amna. I want to start with you.
Okay.
And you have a very great British accent, but your name, Amna Shah, Amna was from Arabic, means peace. Right?
Yes,
and Shah is like Persian.
Yes. So
can you talk about a little bit your background? And
So Shah, actually, it's interesting because it's used, it's a last name for so many different cultures. So it's a very common Indian last name. But interestingly, it's a last name for Hindus, Muslims, and I'm not sure if it Sikhs, Hindus and Muslims mainly.
I was checking. There was Nepal, Pakistan, India,
Pakistan, obviously.
Iran.
Yes, exactly. It's quite kind of cross-cultural in terms of kind of different heritages that it belongs to. And I remember I was working in Leicester actually as a dermatology trainee, and that was a very common question I used to get asked this question all the time in clinic, which was, where are you from? Well, like we've got the same last name. Are you Indian? It's a very common Gujarati last name as well, I believe. I may be getting this completely wrong, but I suppose to answer your question, there's a lot of different cultures that have this last name.
Yeah.
My parents are Pakistani actually, and I was mainly brought up in the UK.
Okay.
So I was in the north of England. That's where I spent my childhood.
And so your parents moved for job opportunities, or when you were young?
Exactly. And a lot of my my dad's family particularly were there. So that it was, we've got like a huge amount of family that are in the UK, and that's a kind of common story. That's a very there's a really quite a big population of British Asians now in the UK who have been in the UK for a long time. So a lot of Indians and Pakistanis started coming to the UK back in the 60s, I believe, maybe even sooner than that. So a lot of people in the UK who are of Indian and Pakistani heritage actually are very British because that's where they were brought up. And
I wanted to ask you that because I feel like because culturally, these are very different two places, right? So how was it for you? And I wonder if your whole life you've lived there, do you... food-wise, entertainment, music, is it all sort of... how do I say it, kind of merged together, or were your parents very much into holding on to like Pakistani traditions at home?
That's a really good question, and this is something that a lot of kind of quite well-known British Asians have explored over the years, which is this sort of almost like collision of cultures, like the Indian Pakistani culture and British culture, and how a British Asian person merges these together, because of course your parents' viewpoint on the world isn't necessarily your viewpoint, because there's cultural changes that happen as you go to school in the UK, as you have friends who are of different backgrounds that you socialize with. It wasn't a huge sticking point for me, I must say. I'm really fond of my culture. I'm really quite familiar with it. So you mentioned food. I'm really familiar with Pakistani cooking and Indian cooking, which is quite similar, to be honest. And I really enjoy it. So I've kind of learned how to make a lot of the food, primarily because I enjoy it, as do my kids.
Yeah, I would say you have 3 kids as well.
Absolutely. We're also seeing kind of big benefits of eating certain kind of spices and certain foods that have culturally been kind of used for us for generations. So it's great to kind of be able to modernize some of those recipes and make them. And that's never really been a huge problem for me. It's I quite enjoy that. In terms of other things, how is it in your family, by the way? So I was just thinking, you were talking about how your parents and they brought that culture with them, obviously, and ingrained it in you. And in your family, with your husband, is he also British? So you sharing the same cultural background? Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, then it's easier.
It's quite easy. It's quite easy. I know that in Dubai, there's a lot of kind of fusion of different cultures through marriage or what have you. And I'm sure that's very interesting in lots of ways, but that's not really been an issue or something that we've had to kind of delve into in our kind of married life.
Interesting, right? Because I was just thinking about, and in Dubai, again, it's such a big story that people from somewhere move to Dubai and then they need to blend their culture with culture of, Arabic culture, so to speak. Although Dubai is quite, full of expats, obviously, right? So can you talk a little bit about that change from when you moved from UK to Dubai? Were you already married? Did you have kids? Or?
Yeah, so I moved to Dubai around 5 years ago. My husband had been in Dubai for a little bit longer. He moved before I did. But I was still training and working for the NHS, and I just wasn't able to move any earlier. Since I've known my husband, which is we're talking 10 years now, I've been coming to Dubai. His family are Dubai based, so I've been quite familiar with Dubai. Obviously not in the sense that I'm not going to say that it was super easy to kind of start living here. There was a lot of learning that had to be done, but I was familiar with different kind of areas of Dubai, the general kind of vibe of Dubai, and I quite liked it. That being said, I remember when I moved to Dubai, I felt incredibly homesick because it is just a completely different sort of place. By the time I moved to Dubai, we had our son, my firstborn, was around. He was very young. He was still a baby. And I was a new mum. So that in a way was quite helpful, because the first thing I did was kind of try to bond with other new mums. Of course, we had the pandemic, so everyone was a bit kind of following the COVID guidelines.
That's a lot of change.
There was a lot of change.
You're becoming a mom,
yes,
moving countries and going through a pandemic Oh my God.
It was a lot.
Okay.
It was a lot. It all could have happened at the same time. My son was born in November 2019. Obviously, the whole COVID thing happened. The whole COVID pandemic happened at 2020. And I feel like the effects of that sort of lingered for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because even when the restrictions were lifted, naturally, as a mum of a small child, there was that fear. And there was still that kind of sort of apprehension to go out and socialize and mingle, because you just, until the vaccination was around, you didn't want to be taking that risk of passing anything on to the baby. My in-laws live here, didn't want to pass anything on to them. So it wasn't that easy to kind of get stuck into the Dubai life. It took a while, but being a mum of a young baby definitely helped, because it's a easy way to get to know people, especially others who've got babies or are in your sort of life situation.
And I guess you're not under pressure as well to straight away go back to work, right? So you were kind of, you can just slowly ease into this. And once the baby's a little bit bigger, you can start. Was that your story? Were you kind of for a while being on maternity leave here?
Yeah, so I returned to work when my son was, I think he was about 7 or 8 months old, but that was for the NHS in the UK. And I did have a lot of support from my mum and other family members when I did that. When I moved to Dubai, I had to go through the licensing process, which is quite a lengthy one. And for me, that did take a good 6 months. Maybe it was COVID that slowed things down. I'm not sure, but it did take a long time. I was very lucky because I'd actually secured a job when I was still in the UK. So I kind of moved to Dubai with a job in place. Perfect. And I basically had to go through the hoops of just getting my license, which was a lot of paperwork. And during the time period that I was waiting for my license to become active, I was at home with my son, and it was absolutely amazing. We did a lot of things together. I spent quite a lot of quality time with him. That being said, I was itching to go back to work as well. So I think I've got rose-tinted specs on right now, because to think that I had such quality time with my son, it was such a privilege. But if I put myself back in that situation, I did remember feeling like it was a bit odd to suddenly move countries, leave the NHS, which I'd worked for quite a long time, and to now start kind of building my new life, but kind of be at home with my baby at the same time. It was really hard. And I honestly, I do look at mums who moved to Dubai who aren't quite back into work yet, to looking after their young babies. And I think, do you know what? You have to be a really strong person to do that, because so on some days it is much easier to go to work. And have a coffee and talk to adults. And not have stuff smeared all over my top.
This is a story of so many women, and it's such a hard situation, because you want to enjoy 24/7 being with your baby, your kids, but there's that part of you that really wants to do that thing that you like, and self-expression, and meeting other adults and talking about adult conversations. And so it's a balance, right? You kind of just need to balance it out so that it doesn't get too heavy on both sides, right?
It's a constant struggle. Sometimes I'm like, why have I not figured this out? It's been going on for 5 years. I should know kind of what I want by now. But it is a constant battle. And I'm sure if you spoke to every mum, they'd have a similar sort of story. We want so desperately to spend quality time with our children, and really quality time. But equally, one just does need that kind of avenue for creativity, for kind of conversations that are possibly a bit more structured, just that need to kind of do something other than be a mum, which sounds, I hope that doesn't sound awful.
It does sound sort of awful when I say it, right? Yeah, but it's actually, when someone says it, I totally understand what you mean by that. It's not like it's not like we don't want to, but it's like we like chocolate, but we can't eat chocolate all the time as well, right?
Exactly.
Like, so it's a balance. Anyways, let's move to skin. Is there a difference between how to treat your skin based on where you are? So you were in UK before you moved to Dubai, and now you're in Dubai. Do you do anything different with your skin, by the way?
So really good question. There are, of course, there's geographical differences in the sort of climate that you're in. So when I lived in the UK, I really felt a difference in how my skin behaved when I was up north, where I felt it was a lot less built up. It felt like there was a lot less pollution versus being in a city, which of course is built up, lots more cars, lots more pollution. In that sense, I really felt there was a change in my skin, how my skin felt in those two different environments. So if you compare UK to Dubai, they're completely different in terms of what's around. So Dubai, obviously, again, it depends, London to Dubai is going to be very different from countryside of the UK to Dubai.
True. Yeah.
So to answer your question, yes, there absolutely are. There's differences in how the skin behaves and what it faces on a day-to-day basis, depending on where you live. And if you live in a big built-up city with a lot of traffic, a lot of construction, a lot of UV, your skin is going to have different challenges to someone who lives in the highlands of whatever country they're in.
Yeah, I remember, like, I'm from Latvia, so it's oftentimes quite cold if it's not summer. And I remember, I guess the coldness and the heat. In the heat, you want to moisturize, right, your skin, but in the cold, you want to feed it or have its heavier creams. Or what's the difference with cold and hot, maybe?
Typically, when patients of a certain skin type, so if you suffer from, say, eczema or dryness of the skin, so if your skin has that tendency to dry up, if you're in a colder environment, you'll find that your skin gets even more dry. There's that kind of transepidermal water loss, and therefore you're less likely to keep your skin hydrated in that sort of environment. So what we'd advise our patients to do when they're in colder climates is to use more hydrating moisturizers or emollients. And what I mean by that is opting for formulations that are thicker, so kind of more oil-based rather than water-based moisturizers. So you're looking at ointments and creams versus a light lotion. So when you're in a hotter climate, your skin's more likely to have this kind of oil build up. You're more likely to be faced with kind of UV hitting the skin. There's different challenges that your skin faces. In terms of keeping it hydrated, well, you still have to do that. But it would be better to opt for a lighter sort of lotion formulation and moisturizer, which won't make you feel kind of overly greasy, you could say.
And you would say, so for the cold weather, it would be better creams oil-based, and for hot weather it would be water-based creams. Is that generalized?
We're kind of basically, we look at the form. It's more to do with the formulation of what you're using. So if you're in a colder climate, I'd suggest going more for the ointments and creams, and when you're in a hotter environment, you may want to opt for a lighter kind of water-based lotion or gel moisturizer. You might have seen those around on the market. Essentially, they're just really light moisturizers, which won't feel too heavy on your skin when you're in that kind of hot, humid climate. Because the last thing you want to do when you're in a hot, humid environment like Dubai is stick on some really thick ointment or cream onto your skin, which will just be super occlusive, potentially cause you to kind of break out, or just make you look really greasy. Like, let's be honest, no one wants to go into their kind of work meeting with
shiny
glossy, shiny, greasy face. But that being said, the caveat to this is it depends. It depends on the person as well. If you're someone who suffers from eczema, which is a medical condition, it's an inflammatory condition where patients have really dry skin to the point where it can break, crack, become infected. Those patients may not be so impacted by the environment in the sense that they may, even in the hotter climate, require a thicker moisturizer than someone who's not got eczema.
And I wanted to ask you about water. I feel like my skin, my hair is different depending on where I am. So sometimes in Dubai, the water seems to make my hair drier. When I'm back home, like, in UK, I think as well, most people drink water from the taps.
Yeah.
So here, no one would drink water probably if it's not filtrated and all of that. How much of the effect is water that we use, like in a shower?
Yeah, the water's definitely hard here. The amount of people I see in my clinic who've moved over from places like the UK or other European countries who felt a difference in that water quality and felt that it's impacting how much hair loss they're suffering from. It's huge.
Hair loss?
Hair loss is a particularly common complaint that I hear about. To be quite honest, having a water filter helps, but it's not going to kind of end the problem. Okay. I wouldn't blame the water for everything.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not great.
And
I wish the water could be purer.
I just wonder if there's anything that people can do. If the water, for example, is not the best quality, is there some supplements or creams or again, some sort of, we don't have to go specific brands, but is there anything that is out there that can help skin?
Yeah, good question. Supplements, no.
Yeah.
Even with creams, I'd say it depends on its case by case. So what is a problem? What is a clinical diagnosis?
Okay.
Are there any tests that need to be done? In terms of supplements, I personally believe in supplementing when there's a deficiency. So if we find an iron deficiency or vitamin D deficiency, or vitamin D is slightly different actually. Most people are just vitamin D deficient and they should probably be taking the supplements. But iron deficiency, for example, is quite common in women who are having periods because we lose iron through blood loss. So the amount of women that are just walking around with an iron deficiency and probably having all these kind of problems such as hair loss and don't even realize it until they come to clinic and have that investigated. So I'd only have that supplemented if it was actually a problem.
Yeah. Can we just quickly break down skin types?
Okay.
Just so we understand how many skin types there are and do all the different types need different approach when we talk about skincare? Yeah.
So skin types is quite a broad term. Because we've actually got skin types in terms of colouring of the skin. So those that have fair skin, fair eyes, fair hair versus those that have a darker sort of complexion, because we know that the colour of your skin presents with different challenges as well.
I wanted to ask.
In terms of skin. So it's a very broad topic. So we know that those that have fairer skin type and fair eyes and hair suffer with UV damage in a slightly different way. So the UV damage, which is both kind of, so UVB, which is a ray of the light that can damage the skin barrier, is more likely to cause kind of signs of sun damage. So that might be crusty skin, red skin. It may be precancerous. It might be precancerous sun damage. In the kind of fairer skin population, as well as of course skin cancer. That's the other kind of big issue that those with fairer skin typically suffer from.
Let's talk about actually. Let's not leave it till the end. We need to finish on a positive note. But let's talk about actually this really kind of heavy topic that is skin cancer and what are the reasons that it happens? Is it genetically? Is it environmentally? And I know you've talked on your social platforms also about children who can suffer with that, which something is not, you don't hear that much about it, but it happens. So can we talk about a little bit what people need to look out for and what are the reasons or risks that can happen? Yeah,
most people who've lived in Dubai for kind of at least 5 to 10 years need to be aware of how their skin is behaving. It's really important. And I'd say that's regardless of skin type. If you're fair, then it's really important. But even the darker skin types, anyone can get skin cancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've been living in a high UV climate, there needs to be that vigilance about the skin. What are you looking out for? Well, melanoma, which is the deadly, more invasive type of skin cancer, would typically present as a changing mole.
And like in different forms. It's not round, right?
Yes. Yeah, so most of the time it's a new mole, but it can be a pre-existing mole that has changed as well.
Okay.
What are you looking out for? I typically tell patients to follow the ABCDE rule, which I've talked about a fair amount to my social media platform. What that stands for is asymmetry. So if your mole is starting to look quite asymmetrical, so if you were to cut the mole in half, would the two sides look the same? And if they don't, then that mole needs to be checked out. B is border. So you mentioned, do melanomas kind of have a slightly irregular border? Not all of them, but if a mole is looking quite irregular and has a fuzzy...
If it's not just smooth with the skin, but it has some kind of...
again, that doesn't necessarily mean it's melanoma.
Yeah.
But if it's changed, get it checked out.
Yeah.
If the colour is darker or lighter, that needs to be checked out. If it's getting bigger...
When you say darker or lighter, then what? Then the normal
previous
mole?
kind of... Yeah, so if it's a pre-existing mole and you see it one day and suddenly you're like, gosh, that looks a lot darker than I remember it being, I'd suggest take a photograph of it. You watch it for the next kind of week or so.
Yeah.
If it's continuing to change, then you should definitely get in with a dermatologist. If you've lived in Dubai for a while and you look at your skin and there's a mole that stands out, that definitely needs to be checked out. Look, seeing a dermatologist would take about 30 minutes of your time. The dermatologist should have a look at your skin with a dermatoscope, which is a specialized magnifying glass. And if they're well trained in looking at moles, they should be able to tell you whether a mole is absolutely fine or whether it's borderline or just barn door kind of melanoma territory and needs to be removed. A dermatologist would be able to either put your mind at rest as to kind of what the situation is.
And I've heard that there's also something, maybe it's a different type of, that there are things that are really insignificant that look at first, and people think it's something, whatever, and then they go to a dermatologist, they're like, oh yeah,
that's a skin cancer. So what you may be talking about is a non-melanoma skin cancers, and I do try to focus on those quite a bit because they're really common. And what we're seeing in Dubai is that younger people are developing these non-melanoma skin cancers. So when I was in the UK, it would typically be a 60 plus sort of patient that would have a basal cell or squamous cell carcinoma. In Dubai, I've diagnosed and treated basal cell carcinomas in patients who are in their 20s.
Wow.
Just because they have spent the majority of their childhood in a climate such as Dubai and not use sunscreen, not use sun protection. So non-melanoma skin cancers can really present as a bit of anything. They may be a red bump, they may be a red patch, they may be a scaly patch, it may look like a patch of eczema that's just not going away. It may be a little ulcer, which is just not healing up. They can be itchy, they can bleed. So my take-home message about skin cancer is if something's appeared and it's just standing out to you, it's not looking right, just go see a dermatologist. It's going to take 30 minutes for them to figure out what's going on and figure out whether you need a biopsy or not of your skin. If something's been on your skin for a while and you've kind of been neglecting it or ignoring it, thinking it's going to go away, and it just hasn't, and you think, well, this isn't a mole, so it's probably fine, just think again, because there's a whole big group of skin cancers that are not mole related, they're non-melanomas, that do still need treatment because they are still skin cancers.
And would you say it's like once a year, like an annual checkup of like I know it's mole mapping or something that you can do. How often do you think a person should do it?
Good question. It really depends on your personal circumstances. So if you have a lot of moles that you just cannot track yourself and you've lived in Dubai for about kind of 10 years, you've spent a fair bit of time outside, you've got fair skin, then I'd say absolutely get yourself in with a dermatologist every year. We'd be able to check your moles from head to toe. It's better that way than to try keep track yourself, because it can be really, really difficult.
And if we talk about kids, what are the main concerns about kids? You know, kids are out in the park, oftentimes playing in a pool, and maybe you can add to SPF. I wanted to talk about SPF separately, but SPF, some people say it's not that good. Other people say, obviously, if it's such a strong sun, that there has to be some sort of protection. Can you talk about SPF and then also kids?
Really, really important topic. There's a lot of misinformation about sunscreen. The bottom line is the biggest cause of skin cancer is the sun. And if you live in the kind of higher UV climates, that's going to be a problem, because you don't necessarily need to be lying on the beach every single day to get skin cancer. You would increase your risks if you did that. But if you go from your car to the supermarket or to drop your kids off at school and it's like a 10-minute walk and you catch the sun every single day, there'll be that cumulative DNA damage that happens to your skin, and that will present itself as pre-cancer or full-blown skin cancer at some point in your life, right? Because that DNA damage has been happening for all those years. So the biggest way to protect yourself from getting skin cancer is by using sunscreen. And
on your face or on your whole body?
Any area that's going to be exposed to the sun needs sunscreen, and a really generous layer of it. So head and neck needs at least 2 fingers worth. So 2 fingers worth of sunscreen, which a lot of people don't realize. And studies have shown that people don't use enough sunscreen. So often it's not the sunscreen that's the problem, it's just we're not using enough of it. Like a little blob just won't be enough to give you adequate protection on your head and neck. You need more than what you may think you need.
And do you think like SPF, like sun cream with tint, or basically a foundation mixed together, are they okay for women to use?
So if you're someone who suffers from hyperpigmentation melasma, which is a common sort of pigmentation that women develop, particularly during pregnancy due to hormones being a bit imbalanced. So pigmentation melasma, hyperpigmentation melasma definitely requires tinted sunscreen. So standard sunscreen just doesn't provide enough coverage to treat those conditions. If you're someone who doesn't suffer from pigmentation, you don't necessarily need to be opting for tinted. You can just go for your standard SPF. I advise 50 plus with UVA and UVB protection.
What about kids with the sun cream? Would you say kids need it every day as well to go out?
Yeah, absolutely. They do indeed. And I know it can be quite impractical to put sunscreen on children. They sometimes just don't like it. They've got this kind of tactile problem with it. I know my kids really do struggle with sunscreen, though they've just got used to putting it on. But I'd say if your kids do not like sunscreen, experiment with the different types of formulations there are on the market. You can get sprays, you can get sticks. Of course, there's creams, which is, in my opinion, the best option. But if you can't get your kid to wear sun cream, then try the other formulations and see if you have any success with that. There's a lot of kind of top tips on social media, like using a makeup brush to apply the sunscreen, personalizing your child's sunscreen bottle so they've got kind of, they're feeling quite empowered and by the fact that it's their sun cream and they're more likely to use it. There are kind of ways of getting sun cream onto your child. Give yourself lots of time as well. Don't be popping on the sunscreen as a child is getting into the car. That's going to equal a big fuss. Start that process way earlier, because you need kind of that 10-15 minutes before you leave the house to ensure that you've got the sunscreen on, you've put enough on, and that everything's kind of ready to go. So
we talked a lot about environmental effect on the skin. Is there any genetical component to it as well? If it's been in a family, then there's a bigger chance, or, you know, who should look out for this even more than everyone else?
Absolutely. So yes, living in a high UV climate is a big risk factor, but genetics absolutely play a role.
Okay.
So if you have a family history of a first degree relative who's suffered from a melanoma or a non-melanoma skin cancer, you're more likely to get it yourself. Okay. So there is that potential genetic link. So if you have a father or mother who've had melanoma, then you need to be extra vigilant.
Okay.
You need to get your moles checked. If you have a family history of what we call atypical moles, or you yourself have quite atypical or slightly funny looking moles, then you should be seeing a dermatologist at least every year to get those funny looking moles checked out, because it can be really hard to differentiate between just a funny looking mole versus a melanoma, and you don't want anything. The last thing we want is for anything to be missed. The other kind of positive is if a melanoma is caught early, it's a very treatable cancer. So it's a no-brainer that if you have a family history or a history of atypical moles, either in the family or on yourself, you should be seeing a dermatologist regularly.
And what about these moles in the sun? Are they need some extra treatment when you go on the sun? Should there be, there's these transparent little like patches that you put for pimples and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you need to treat them specifically when you go swimming, for example?
I don't advise any specific treatment.
Okay.
I usually say cover all sun exposed areas with sunscreen, though we know that even with a huge amount of sunscreen on, the moment you go in the water, the sunscreen will start wearing off.
Yeah.
So other ways to protect your skin are covering your skin up. So you can actually get so you wearing kind of special sun protection clothes, you could say, which have got a really tight weave. Any clothing item that if you put your hand under and you can see your hand, so it's fairly transparent clothing, so the light linens, for example, the sun will still get through that clothing and hit your skin. So it's not, I'd say that's not the best of options. So if you're thinking about kids, for example, they're better off wearing kind of specific kind of rash vests or kind of UPF clothing when they're out and about, kind of in the pool or by the sea, just because A, they probably will not put enough sunscreen on. That's how kids are. B, you'll protect their skin just by having it covered. So the sun doesn't actually even physically hit the skin. Wear hats, like with adults and children should be wearing wide brimmed hats, not just a cap. A cap's only going to give you a limited amount of protection. To get that kind of full protection, because we see skin cancers behind the ears, on the back of the neck. So to get that full protection, I'd say wide brimmed hat, sunglasses that are of a high quality and provide UV protection. There are all other things that you can do. Another really important thing, which is often overlooked, is just seeking shade. So sit under that kind of big shady tree, take an umbrella with you and sit under it if you feel that UV is just a bit too strong. Maybe don't go out in the middle of the day. Try go out either earlier on or later in the afternoon. And for people who live in Dubai, this is really important, because this is kind of the climate that you live in. You've just got to kind of work around it. And there is a way of staying safe in the sun and avoiding sunburn. And these are just kind of some tips on how to do that.
Well, just last question. We're right on time at the end. I just wanted to ask you about, because that will be maybe a personal question to me. That's something I've taken on as well, putting SPF. And then also sometimes I want to make sure that, I have some risks of acne. I've had it in the past. We've treated together with you. But I've noticed when the cream is too heavy, then that definitely affects my pores and I get more breakouts. And then on top of that, sometimes I want to put some makeup on, or, there's all these things, and I sometimes get too overwhelmed of like thinking, should I? Because you see also some people putting, you put first the serum, then you put the eye cream, then you put another cream, then you put this. I like my skin, I can't put too many things on because I feel like it's not
really
breathing.
Heavy. You can actually get sunscreens which are gel formulation and really light. So one that I really like, and I've got no kind of sponsorship at all from this brand, but I just genuinely really like it, is the Eucerin sunscreen. And it's got a gel oil-free kind of version, and I really like that because that
is light.
It's light. It doesn't clog the skin up. So great if you're going through hormonal breakouts or generally have that sort of skin type where if you put too much on, you end up breaking out or feeling quite congested. There's quite a few brands actually that do cater for acne-prone skin. So again, it goes back to looking at the formulation of the sunscreen. Go for a light sort of gel or lotion versus a heavier sort of cream formulation. Sprays are nice, but sometimes you just don't put enough on with the spray. So it's not my absolute favorite in terms of formulation. If you have to, fine for reapplication, I suppose, but not as the primary sort of base. But there's lots of options from all the good brands, and it's a case of just exploring and seeing what suits you.
Yes, I think that's been my journey for the last years and years of trying different things. And I think at the end, when you go to a professional, you actually can see, all these things that you've done is definitely not for your skin.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And that kind of is, and that's the best thing to do, is someone who can actually look at it and see what your skin needs, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's the advantage of seeing a dermatologist, that you kind of just get that clarity on what your skin type is, what your skin needs are, and the sort of treatments that can be used to help that skincare need. And often the stuff that dermatologists can prescribe, you cannot get from standard pharmacies or the Sephoras. Personally, I'd rather have a very tailored, slimline skincare plan versus a 10-step routine where you're using about 10 serums a day. Just because they looked quite helpful in Sephora, or they were sold to you in one of these department stores, and now you feel like you've got to use them. The reality is that no one needs such a lengthy skincare routine. You just need to know what your skin type is and what the needs are, and target it with specific ingredients.
We will talk more another time, because I have so many more questions about the hormonal and the women and men and aging and all of that. But for now, I think let's put a comma. And after what you said, it's tailored, and you need to really look into your own skin with a professional.
Absolutely.
And not maybe follow all the, social media is so full with information, but oftentimes it's just not good for you. And,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it can be quite easy to look at people on social media and think, gosh, they've got perfect skin. Or they've got that glass skin that I want. They don't have acne. They never have acne. How's that possible?
They're having filter.
Do they have pigmentation? Oh, well, why have I got pigmentation and they haven't? There's so much that can kind of mentally affect you without you even realizing. And it is kind of, it is important to recognize that there are filters and it's highlights mainly.
Exactly.
And I'm definitely seeing the effects of that in my clinic, because I'm seeing patients who are younger and younger who are significantly impacted by what they're seeing on social media. So it is coming from a dermatologist. It's really important to recognize that hardly anyone has perfect skin. Everyone's got their own kind of personal struggles that they're going through. And don't compare your skin to someone else's. It's kind of like people say, don't compare your life. Comparison is a thief of joy, is what they say. And I definitely say that applies to skin, because especially for a lot of women, not just women, I'd say, I'm generalizing, even for men, there is that sort of, you kind of think, why me? Why am I that person with the acne or the eczema? Well, it might be lots of people that you're seeing on social media as well, but they're choosing not to document that or show it.
Exactly.
So it's really easy to kind of fall into that trap. But I see all sorts of skin types in clinic. I can tell you that no one has perfect skin or should be aiming to have perfect skin. I really feel that you should just be comfortable in the skin that you have. And if that means having treatment from a dermatologist, fine, or doing things that boost how you feel about yourself, then that's great as well. There's nothing wrong with that, and there shouldn't be stigma attached to that, because one is allowed to want to feel the best they want to, the best they can. But it's just that comparison aspect that can really lead to body dysmorphia or mental health issues in other ways.
I want to say mindset, right? Like
Mindset.
it's you wanting to for something to look perfect because you think others do, but they don't, and then you're in this like vicious cycle of trying to chase that almost, right?
It is a vicious cycle, and it's interesting because as you get older, I do feel you become a bit more comfortable in your skin in a way. I found that since I've had my kids, I'm a lot less likely to be bothered by certain things. But it's a paradox because as you get older, you start getting bothered by other things which may not have affected you in your like early 20s. And it's a whole different kind of set of issues that you're kind of analyzing. And I know that people in my friendship group or family are kind of doing the same. And it just boils down to the same thing, which is kind of accepting that your skin's going to go through changes. It's going to go through highs and lows, and no one's got perfect skin. I'm trying to strive to be as comfortable as I can in my own skin, and accepting that, it's not going to look like what it did in my early 20s, but that's fine. There's always ways to improve things, but you're never going to get perfect.
I know. I think and I think we should end on this beautiful note, because I think there should be beauty in changing and evolving and seeing that there is some wisdom in your skin as well, which maybe means aging, but you can age beautifully as well, right?
Absolutely.
So,
that completely is. And a part of my practice is aesthetics, so I do see a fair bit of this conversation, and I don't see anything, like I don't see why there should be stigma about having kind of treatments, but the bottom line is one should just strive to feel as comfortable as they can in themselves. And if there is a deeper issue, then honestly, like, that it is so important to seek help from the right people for that. Because often it does present as being really hypercritical of appearance or your skin. It's an easy thing to focus on. And it's easy, particularly when you're a young mum of young kids, to be so hypercritical about yourself, your body, your skin, your hair, everything.
And also, it's such a big industry. You see adverts everywhere, and they're like strawberry taste, or not taste, but aroma, or this. And then now this new thing of like non-fragrance skincare. I've noticed people are talking more about it. What a quick comment maybe on that. What do you think on a fragrance that is
so there's a lot of conversation about it. My kind of general take on it is those that have got a skin condition like eczema should be avoiding fragrance. Like, medically, it's not great for your skin barrier. It's going to irritate it. It's going to increase that transepidermal water loss. You're going to end up with a flare of the eczema. So the first thing we do when we see eczema patients is advise them to use non-fragrance products, moisturizers, kind of soap substitutes, that sort of thing. In those that do not suffer from any kind of dermatology conditions of that nature, it is safe to use fragrance products, so I don't have a blanket ban on it. But then there's a whole other conversation, like
endocrine disrupting, right? And
absolutely, I don't have the expert knowledge to be commenting on that. But I know that that's a big kind of conversation of the moment. So.
Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, the skin is one of the first things that you see on a human, and sometimes it's one of the last things that you really know through and through what to do as a normal human being, not as a doctor. But it's a big question for me, especially with small kids after postnatal, and I only recently in my 30s realized that it has to be a consistent thing to remember to check, especially in UAE with a high sun. So for everyone who's watching, please follow Dr. Amna Shah. She is sharing with her followers all the tips on about skin, what you need to do for specific groups, and every time I see a video, I learn something more. And thank you so much.
I'm so happy to hear that, because that's the point of the videos that I put up. I hope that viewers can just learn a little something, or just realize that actually they might just need to see a dermatologist for X, Y, Z, or if a mole's changing, that just needs a review from a professional. So I'm really happy to hear that it's having a positive impact for you.
We'll meet again. I want to speak more. So next time we'll talk about so many more topics. But I think right now we focused on really important and crucial parts of skin care and health.
Yeah.
Which thank you so much for that.
No worries. It was a pleasure.
See you later. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.